Good morning. It's 8:58 a.m. It is August 15th. Happy Tuesday. So I wanted to come on here and make this video really quick because I know that a lot of people wonder about, well, what exactly do you believe, Maria? I know that, I had mentioned that I had the trouble with people persecuting me for my religious beliefs. I just want to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of my background so that maybe, my viewers can understand me a little bit more. And I would first off like to say that I do believe that all religions should be worthy of respect, even though I may not understand some religions, even though I've studied a lot of religions. But, we are here for a reason. We are here to live our lives here on the earth in the best way we possibly can and seek as much truth as we can. All the truth. That's what my life has been about, is that I'm looking for those answers. That's been my goal and my mission since I was born. And I believe that, everyone on this planet makes mistakes. We fumble, we slip, we fall. We do things that sometimes are not right, but this is a part of being human. But our ultimate goal is to strive for the best life that we possibly can, morally, emotionally, I would say financially, yes. You don't have to be wealthy or rich, but you should try to live as comfortably as you possibly can on this earth. There's a lot of suffering. I believe the earth here is meant for suffering. I'm going to go a little bit into what it is that I believe. First of all, I grew up in a home that really was not religious. We did not have a practicing religion that was like set in stone. Like my family expected us to adhere to any particular doctrine. But I was born with a form of inner knowing, meaning that I understood that there was something greater than me, even before I had my parent or maybe a church person approach me. I knew that there was what some people would call God. Okay, and I respected this force, and I knew internally that I would never disrespect it in any way. Like, I don't even like to call it it. Like, I'm always like backtracking what I'm saying because I view this higher power as sacred. Like, sacred to the point of I want to be clear in my thoughts, and I want to be um, oh gosh, how can I say it? As pure as I can when I connect, to this higher power. And like I said, this was something I literally I feel as though I came out of the womb with this knowing. And so from the very beginning as a child, I had an interest in the unseen because I experienced things that were of the unseen a lot, and you might know children, or you might have a child, or maybe you're one of them yourselves who had these experiences as a kid. And I know that sometimes parents get upset because they think their kids are just jabbering away, but they're not. They're not. Some kids are very imaginative, but some kids also have this inner knowing. And the problem with it is that a lot of times parents don't understand it, and socialization and things like that take this out of the child, meaning that maybe they get discouraged to not pursue it. They tell their kid that they're dreaming. They tell their kid that it's all in their head, blah 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 blah. Okay, which I always found this to be a contradiction because, like I said, we live in the United States. Now, the United States is not as Christian identified as it used to be. Okay, but the majority of the people in this country at one time were Christian. Okay, and this is what the whole foundation of the Bible is about. Okay, people do have gifts. People do have spiritual connections. The purpose of having a relationship with the higher power, or people like to call God, say God. This is the purpose of it. Okay, and some people are blessed with these gifts. And some parents, like in certain countries, I believe this person was from Italy, their family recognized this gift in their child, so they ended up, dedicating their child to pursuing religious studies and this person became a nun. Sometimes people do that in certain families. They recognize it from the very beginning and they put them into a certain direction. Like, okay, well, obviously you have spiritual gifts. You seem to be more focused on some form of purity more than anyone else. Maybe this is what you're supposed to do. So they at least kind of encourage them and give them some sort of roadmap. I would say here in this country, unfortunately, because there's a lot of not real understanding, there's a lot of people who participate in religion mainly because it's more based on tradition, or they do it for like tradition, socializing, whatever. But they really don't think about what the meat and potatoes of the religion is, and it is that connection. Now, not everybody has that connection. Not everybody feels the need to always be in a constant state of like prayer or meditation, but some people do. And for those people, this is a spiritual thing that is very satisfying to them and very important to them in their lives. So I was one of those people, and I am one of those people. So of course, because I had this gift, I obviously took interest in anything that described it, or alluded to it. So anytime like my mom was watching a movie, that had something to do with the unseen, even if it was something like a horror movie. Now, mind you, I was never into like dark stuff, but I did understand that that stuff existed. I understood that it did, even at a young age. So the what happened with on in like my daily life, like the earthly plane, aside from my toys that I would play with and my little interest in things like, Charlie Brown and playing maybe some softball or whatever, my main interests were those of the spiritual realm. And I still to this day, this is who I am. This is it's everything I am. It's like 100% me. So I started seeking answers. I know that my parents, when my dad was building a room to the house back in the 70s, we did study with Jehovah's Witnesses. My family did. My mom and my dad had, let this person come into their home every week. My dad's mother had converted to being a Jehovah's Witness in the 60s. So of course I think, he saw the opportunity to kind of get to know what his mother was reading into. So we had Bible studies for a little bit. And then my dad and my mom, it created marital tension a little bit because my mom liked her Christmas and she liked all that stuff. So, they basically threw all those religious books in the garage. And anyway, but so I still wanted to know, I wanted to know the things of God. And I remember, there was a Baptist church that came by that would pick kids up to go to the Baptist church. And so we went for a little bit. And of course, when you're really, I'm going to call it spiritual hungry, and I was as a kid, I would go to these church meetings and, it's for kids, it's for kids, and it's for kids who are not necessarily, these little church rooms, they're for kids who want to maybe draw a picture of Jesus, color a picture of Jesus, have some punch and a little afternoon snack. It's there to pacify the kids whose parents are in the adult room, right? But I remember wanting to be in the adult room because I kept thinking maybe there's more lessons there. Maybe there's more lessons there. And I know this sounds crazy because most people really aren't religious, okay? And I'm not religious at all as an adult. But what I'm saying is just that I have this internal pull to be a spiritual person. And so I remember getting to sit in the adult section for a while. And, I was a little kid and they would talk about things. And I didn't quite understand everything they were saying. Unfortunately, a lot of it was over my head. And then, of course, as a kid, I didn't realize how long those meetings were. And I would get fidgety and then, they would have to get me out and I'd go back to the little kids or whatever. But we didn't go to those church meetings very long. But I remember still, when we stopped going, I still wanted to know about, I had questions like, what happens to us when we die? Where do we go? Why do I feel like things from the past are in my present. Like I felt like there was a connection. Like I could feel things. I could sense things. You know. So I remember like flipping through the channels and watching. Yeah, I noticed this one particular TV station, and in our community, that particular TV station was called TBN, the Trinity Broadcast Network. It would come on Channel 6, right? And so I remember looking at it. I never liked really the doctrines of TBN, and I think what turned me off, okay, and I don't know if people remember these two. It was gosh, Paul and Jan Crouch. Okay, some people might laugh at them. They kind of remind a lot of people of Tammy Faye Baker, Tammy and Jim Baker. Anyway, I remember watching them, and like, you know, she would pick up a piece of paper and talk about how these people need to send in donations. And there was something about it that made me feel, even as a kid, I didn't know what commercialism was. I didn't know what, I didn't understand like the whole business aspect of it as a kid. I'm like only 7 or so, but I didn't like it. I didn't like what I was hearing on TV. I didn't like the fact that they were so rich. You know, it just, I don't know what it was about it. It's just that I felt like I needed to see sincerity. Like, not asking, don't ask me for money. Don't get the money part out of it. I didn't like that part of it. Even though, and it was just inside me. I just didn't like it. But I remember her reading these letters from people who would write into TBN. And of course, you know, they were talking about tithing, and they really raised that whole thing up about making money. And I just, you know, I didn't particularly like that either. So I just realized that, you know, I just wanted to be a person that was close and always wanted to be a spiritual person. Like, I wanted to do things that were right. I wanted to be a good person, you know, and not just because I was fearful of my eternal soul. It was just something in me. Like, I've always felt very connected to that life, you know. And so I remember when I was a kid seeing this episode. I don't know what it was a TV show, but these people were nuns, right? And I kept thinking, wow, that seems interesting to me. I would like maybe to be a nun, because that way I could always be around those things. Like, I could get up in the morning, say prayer. I could, you know, well, even when I'm folding laundry, you know, I would still be in an act of servitude or something like that. You know, and I remember telling my mom that, like, you know, Mom, what kind of need if I'd be a nun? And she's like, well, if you do that, you can't have kids. And I kept thinking, at the time when I was little, you know, I envisioned, like, you know, getting married, having kids and stuff like that. So I kept thinking, well, no, I don't think so. I didn't realize, you know, that there was such a restriction on that lifestyle. But I still had a lot of admiration, respect for nuns, seeing as how that's a dedication, right? So anyway, when I got in junior high school, this is when I met Amanda. She was a Jehovah's Witness. And so I remember she and I talked and clicked right away, because I said, you know, hey, my parents used to study with Jehovah's Witnesses. And so we started talking, and since I had an interest in spiritual things, you know, we talked for hours on the phone, like the very first day I met her. And I remember going out to my dad's garage and getting those Watchtower books and reading them and thinking, okay, well, maybe this is what I need to do, you know. But as I got older, I started to have my questions and doubts about the Watchtower Tract Society. Even though as a teenager, I, you know, would go to the Kingdom Hall and stuff like that. I actually couldn't go to the Kingdom Hall till I was 17. I think there was a rule. Yeah, there was a rule in the house that we couldn't choose our own religion until we got to a certain age. So then after that age, I started going to the Kingdom Hall. But I still have my questions and doubts, mainly because of things that I had researched. But I had always also had an interest in the occult, meaning I was extremely curious about what they call direct spiritual communication. And when I was a kid in seventh grade, and I'm not saying this is right, but I think a lot of kids have an interest in dabbling. You know what I mean? So when I was in seventh grade, I had a teacher who on Fridays, you know, it was kind of lax, and you can just kind of do what you want to do, kind of free time type thing. And this girl brought in a Ouija board.
And I remember thinking, wow, you know, I immediately took interest in it, and I wanted to know what it was like, and I started like, you know, I got a chance to work with it, and I still had questions. You know, it was her Ouija board. I kept thinking, man, how can I get a Ouija board? I really wanted one, and I remember after that day, there was a lot of like complaints, you know, coming into that teacher's office because there were some parents who were not comfortable with somebody bringing a Ouija board into a classroom, and they felt as though they should have known about it before somebody brought that in. And so I kept thinking, what's the big controversy? I didn't understand. I asked my mom, and she told me that Ouija boards were kind of weird. And I mean, like, and I kept thinking, what do you mean, like they're weird? And she just said that, you know, people use it to communicate with spirits. And I kept saying that there was a lot of parents who were complaining because some people's religions just outright forbid people playing with Ouija boards. As an adult, I fully understand why, because that is some of the darkest energy you can bring into your home. But anyway, there was a girl that was my sister's friend, and we were hanging out, and she said she had a Ouija board because I was interested. I was on this Ouija board mission, and I think I mentioned it, and she said she had one, so she let us borrow it. Anyway, we had the Ouija board for a while, and the girl who let us borrow the Ouija board, she was kind of a misguided kid, got into a lot of trouble, so she ended up going to juvenile hall. And she went to juvenile hall, I think, for the summer. And we were just using the Ouija board, and we started experiencing a lot of weird things. I specifically started experiencing weird things, seeing manifestations, things that were freaking me out. And my mom said, you know what, you need to get rid of this Ouija board. And she refused to have it in the house. I couldn't return it to the girl because she was in juvenile hall. So I was like, okay, what do we do with this? So I ended up having to like ditch it. I ditched it in like a sewer drainage that was by my house a long time ago. Some people recommend that you burn them, but anyway, so I have always had some sort of fascination with that stuff. Now, as I got older, I realized that there is clearly certain energies that you do not want to mess with. You know, you don't want to mess with things like Ouija boards that have a direct communication with the spirit realm. And the reason why is because there are energies and spirits all around us. Just like, you know, how I'm talking about me cracking the code to this gang stalking thing. Okay, that comes from psychic abilities. Believe this when I tell you that if people have these sort of abilities, these sort of spirits are around. We have good spirits and we have really bad spirits. And spirits will inhabit things. They will inhabit certain things. They inhabit buildings. You've heard of haunted buildings. You've heard of haunted houses. You've heard of haunted objects. These things are real, okay? And if you believe in your Bible, you'd understand what I'm talking about. Okay, because this is what this whole thing is about. It's about us living on a very spiritual, on a very evil realm, because the earth is a very evil, wicked place, and there are wicked spirits all over around us, and there's also good ones too. You've heard of weird miracles where, like, you know, somebody's getting into an accident, and then all of a sudden they'll have somebody by their side, holding them, reassuring them, giving them confidence that they're going to be okay. These sort of things do happen. There are good spirits that are basically saying, hey, you know what, you're not done here. And then there are bad spirits. They exist, okay? This is what this whole thing is about, okay? Anyway, but certain things like Ouija boards tend to attract lower level entity spirits. And I think a good depiction of what I'm talking about, like Walt Disney. Walt Disney was a big time occultist, okay? And he dabbled into some stuff that would surprise you for somebody who represents like a family entertainment thing like Disney. But Walt Disney was very much into the occult. And although like that movie Beauty and the Beast came out long after Walt Disney had passed away, the spirit of Disney shows in all of its cartoons and animation still to this very day. So like, for example, you'll see in Beauty and the Beast where they have these little objects that are like running around. They have like a mind of their own. We have like that little teapot, the little cup, Chip, whatever his name is. Those things, magical items like that, are called enchanted items. And what Disney is doing is obviously it's an exaggeration because like obviously things like teacups don't speak, teapots don't speak, they don't dance around, clocks don't dance around, they don't do that. But what they're actually referring to is that they have magical abilities and they can do things. Okay, that's an enchanted object. Okay, and they do. Like some people don't like dolls because they understand that demons or spirits in general will inhabit certain things, especially if it has a human form. And I know it sounds crazy, but when I've come to understand that the spiritual realm is very strange, okay? It's very strange, and it's something that people cannot wrap their brains around. You know what I mean? It's very deep, okay? It's very, very deep. But I've come to understand that there is a difference between the two. Some people like myself who have ESP, clairvoyance, clairaudient, whatever, these are natural gifts, okay? People like me have, of course, experimented with what I want to say dark things like Ouija boards, and I would not do that again. You know what I mean? But it was an experience. I would not do it again. I would not recommend bringing that sort of stuff into your home. But my point is that this spiritual thing is very real. I'm not kidding you. It is very, very real. And if you take the time to pray, you'll see signs in front of you. Okay? It's about having a direct communication with, if you want to call God, call it God. Call him God, her God, whatever. Okay? Like I said, when it comes to describing God, it gets very tricky because no one has ever seen God. Okay? Like when we talk about the Bible, okay, let me just say this. In the Bible, like we have, or I would say, within Christian religion, like the Christian religion believes that there's a God, like a Trinity, right? God the Father, and then we have Jesus, right? And then we have like the Holy Spirit. Okay. Now, when I think of God the Father, no one's ever seen God the Father. Unlike Jesus, who they say that he came to earth, okay? Unlike this person, Jesus, God has never been seen. Like, it's a force that no one really knows looks like. And there was a lot of uproar back in the early, like, times of cinema when people wanted to depict things. Like, it was kind of like a looked down upon thing to try to portray God, put him into cinema, because people thought that was kind of a, like, wow, like that's something you don't do, because it was a form of respect. It seemed like it was kind of sacrilegious or disrespectful in a way, you know. But when I think of like this force or God, whatever, gosh, I'm so careful about my wording, you know. No one can imagine because, or even understand what it is. It's incomprehensible. The understanding is incomprehensible. You know, it's like it described. I don't want to say it. I mean, wow. You know, someone never had a beginning, never has an end. You know, it's mind blowing. Okay, so then we have this representation of Jesus, who says that he comes from this realm, right, down to earth to atone for sins. What I understand about this God is that I look at God as like this force. Some people personify God, which they try to do in movies, like I said. Some people make idols. Some people try to do whatever. I don't. That's one. Some people don't like the idea of idols because no one can even comprehend what or describe. You know, and I'm so careful about it describing because it's so sacred. It is extremely sacred. You know, I have no way of describing who or you know, it's just wow. So, but I do believe that the characteristic of the higher power is one that is powerful and what would seem to be chaotic and beyond, like I said, incomprehensible.
Because I know the Bible says, in Isaiah, that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. I form the light, and I create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So some people would be like, well, you mean like God creates evil? See, this is where it gets really strange, okay? And so it's because it's incomprehensible for most people to understand that. I have a hard time personifying God. So I look at God as something that I can't describe. I will never be able to describe it. I don't know, it's like we use the word it. It's just something that is, some people represent it as showing like light and dark, something like that. I don't know how I can describe. I'm just saying is everything originates, good or bad, from God. And Jesus came here, according to what the scriptures say, as another prophet of God to set some sort of moral conduct on how we are to interact and behave so that we don't offend this God. In the Bible, it talks about animal sacrifices. Now, this is something that took place in the Old Testament. There were animal sacrifices. Like, for example, if you did something bad, you did something bad that was on your conscience, that would require a blood sacrifice. Now, God, like for example, God commanded Israel to perform several sacrifices according to certain procedures that were ritualistic in nature. So, like for example, number one, the animal had to be free of blemish. It could not have any imperfections. Like if it had like a mole on it or something, they would carefully examine the animal, make sure nothing was wrong with it. And then number two, the person offering the sacrifice had to own it or be associated with the animal. And then number three, the person offering the animal had to kill it themselves. Okay, so when this particular deity was not pleased with an individual, they would go and get an animal, the best animal that they had, and they would slaughter it. Okay, that sacrifice that they made was allowed them to wipe the slate clean. Okay, so some people would say, well, how come we don't have animal sacrifices today? Now, Christians will ask this question, and the reason why, according to the Christian belief, okay, Jesus came down here to appease this God by providing his blood, shed his blood. You see what I'm saying? Some people, they recite these sort of things in their churches, but they don't understand exactly what they're talking about. They're just more reciting it because they hear it. They'll hear about the blood of Jesus, they'll hear about this sort of stuff, but what does that mean? They don't get it, okay? The God that Jesus represents required blood sacrifice. So Jesus died, okay? From what I understand, it was a very torturous death. But it followed these requirements. Number one, Jesus was not, of course, as an animal. Jesus had a pre-existence in heaven. And most importantly, Jesus was considered to be a perfect person, meaning he did not create any sins while he was here on the earth. So that was the first thing that fit the requirement, okay? Number two, the person offering the sacrifice had to be owned or associated with the sacrifice. So, of course, that was God's son. So he was the only one who could kill him, right? And then number three, the person offering the animal had to kill it themselves. So that's what happened. Jesus, according to what the Christian beliefs is, that Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice. Therefore, there is no more need for people who, when they do something, they have to go and kill one of their animals. So I remember reading all these things when I was a kid. And although I don't go to churches and I don't go to,
I don't like to identify with any particular religious sect, and I don't appreciate people trying to put pressure on me to do so. I focus mostly on this higher being. Like my main focus is understanding the nature and trying to understand the nature, or being close to it as they possibly can, to this higher being. And because I am so dedicated to my belief system, and this is what allows me to do the things that I do, you know.
So my interest has, returned to
talking more about, I guess, these sort of things, because people think that I'm a voodoo queen. No, I am not a voodoo queen. I did dabble when I was younger. I think that's normal. That's absolutely normal, especially if you realize that you are extremely intuitive. You're going to want to know as much as you possibly can, and you want to understand it. And that's basically what I did. And I still continue to this day, feel as though that this will always be a part of my life. It's who I am, I think some people think that they can beat this sort of thing out of you. I could never love or care about anything more than what I do. I can't. I love this. This is my life. This is who I am. I am like completely blended into my spiritual belief system. But no, I do not use my spiritual belief system in the secular world. And what I mean by that is that, like, for example, you go to work. That's not my topic of conversation. It's not from, I'm not going to, force my beliefs or even bring up my beliefs, to anybody that I know, unless, of course, they want to pursue that conversation. Like, for example, if somebody says, hey, I saw this movie, and it was talking about this, and this, and they asked my opinion, they open that dialogue, then I guess I would have a conversation. Probably not very lengthy, but I would have a conversation with them. But I don't bring my spiritual beliefs to like work. I don't shove my belief system down people's throats. I don't want to ever make somebody feel like I'm they have to see things my way. They don't. I do say, though, if you choose to, do your own research into your own Bible, that's your choice, okay? I'm not going to pressure you or anything. But, the thing is that just know what it is that you believe. That's the most important thing. And then also, I believe that we're here based on what I've read. And I would say based on what I've read, and of course the Bible is included into that. Like, I don't want to ever identify with a religion, okay? But I will say that my study of the Bible growing up has given me a good understanding, a lot of it, you know what I mean? Do I agree with everything that I read in the Bible? I think a lot of things that were written in the Bible can no longer apply, mainly because we don't live in that time period anymore. You know what I mean? But do I think it's a spiritual book? Yeah, I do. Do I think it's a wise book? There's a lot of things in there that I would agree with, yes. But when it comes to my religion, I choose not to have one. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up my video really quick. I know this is kind of a rambling video. I really wanted to put more slides in it, but I have been very demotivated lately, and I'm trying really hard to get myself together. I'm kind of falling apart inside because it's like there's just so much crap that goes on in my life. But I do want to come back with another video some other time later. Today I'm taking it easy, and tomorrow it's back to looking for work. But for now, this is what I wanted to talk about. And I will be back with another video sometime later. Take care.